17th, 2024, regular meeting of the Talawanda City School District Board of Education regular session. Ms. Felsky, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. King? Here. Mr. Mead?
Here.
Mr. Otto?
Here.
Dr. Howard?
Here. Thank you. Sorry. Could we have, it is recommended that the board approve the agenda as presented.
Amended, please.
I'm sorry, what?
As amended.
As amended. Oh. Approve the agenda as amended. Do I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Could you explain a little bit about how it's been amended?
Under the classified area, we added a person to the sublist who has met the requirements. We also, under the classified, pulled off a person because the person's permit has not come through. ODE's been a little bit slow on permit issuance. And then we removed another new classified employee who's going to start because her permit also hasn't been done. And then we switched at the end the board vacancy appointment update to after the superintendent and treasurer's contracts.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Elsky, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Mr. Mead, our Butler Tech report.
The Butler Tech Board met Tuesday night. We had a 90-minute presentation of our strategic plan. It included a lot of data about completion rates and how many certifications students received. I'll go through that and see if there's anything of interest that I would like to report out to the Talawanda community. We have 2 groundbreakings coming up, one on October 2nd, out at our Bioscience Center, which you can see from 75, the red building. We're adding 30,000 square feet to that building. And we have another on October 17th out in Middletown for our aviation education hangar. So a lot of new buildings going up so we can have new programs at Butler Tech. Wednesday, September 25th, there'll be a group going to Emily Mullins Farm in Okeana, there on 129. She's a Talawanda grad, very active in FFA. She is one of Butler Tech's business partners, and another business partner, Aerial Velocity and Group, are going out and using drones to check water and nutrients that are needed in the crops. Some of our students will be taking part in that, and I know that Carrie Roberts will be there as well, our FFA teacher. And then our assistant superintendent, Marnie Durham, and myself have asked to be members of a task force for the city of Oxford working on economic development. So I'm glad that Marnie is bringing Butler Tech this way, because it seems like Butler Tech is not very much up in this corner of the county. So it's nice to get some of our administrators involved with the city up here. That's my report.
Thank you. Student Achievement Academic Liaison, Mrs. King.
Okay, so for Kramer, the teachers were able to get their MAP testing, Ames web testing, and start planning for their DI groups and the new bookworm curriculum. The teachers have established their rules, routines, and procedures. The staff have done a great job building community in the classrooms and designing great lessons. Moving on to the high school, we have much to celebrate with the new report card. We will have a full update and lots of positive PR coming soon. We did have 2 students, Piers Noltmeyer and Victor Lee, earn semifinalist status for the National Merit Award. They were two of 6 THS students up for distinction. The other 4 students, Hayden Hanicum, Alexander Lute, Matthias Militzer, and Krupa Patel, all earned commended status. The FFA and FCCLA have had successful spring and summers as always and are representing the THS family well. Moving on to Bogan. We've had a great start to this school year, according to the new principal, Ms. Cannon. Our students are demonstrating active engagement in the hands-on activities that their teachers are working hard to prepare. In addition, 2 of our staff members are partnering with the local Kiwanis chapter to lead K Kids Club with our students. Their first meeting was this month. For TMS, TMS would like to celebrate our overall state report card result. We earned 4 stars. TMS reflected growth in many areas on the report card. The 6th grade math team was number 1 in the county for the overall math score. We've made a lot of progress, but we know we have much work to do. This year, we are in the first year of the full implementation of our new English Language Arts curriculum, Common Lit 360. We will continue with professional development on September 20th. Teachers seem excited about the new program and learning how to meet the needs of our students through the professional development support. For a 9/11 remembrance, several activities took place across the building, but one specific one celebrated the partnership between the Oxford Lane Library and the district. Our 8th grade students were invited to take part in a program at the library. They went to view a poster exhibit from the 9/11 Memorial Museum called September 11, 2001, The Day That Changed the World. The library also provided a video to share with our classes, also from the museum, which was reviewed what happened that day and shared stories of several witnesses. After the video, museum staff were available to answer questions via chat. Moving on to Marshall. Marshall's had a wonderful start to the school year. Teachers have established routines and procedures, and the students have adjusted well and are becoming familiar with these expectations. We have discussed a lot of what it means to be good PACS leaders inside and outside of the school. All teachers have established a PACS vision for the classroom. For September, our focus has been on the cafeteria, what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, and what we should be doing to be a good PACS leader in the cafeteria. We've had a PACS kickoff assembly in August, and guest speaker Director Greg and the city council member Ms. Ragu shared what it was like to be a good PACS leader inside and outside of Marshall. Students have learned about Maud Marshall, whom our building is named after. Miss Marshall was a 1st grade teacher at Hanover Township School. She taught for 50 years, where she served our community and children. She is the ultimate PACS leader. Maud Marshall's picture is hanging all around our school and reminds us of how to be a good PACS leader. September's been a busy month. We've had therapy dogs come to visit, held our 2nd family group meeting, and welcomed the bookmobile. Students love getting to visit with the therapy dogs. These dogs will visit twice a month. Research suggests pets can facilitate engaged learning and promote good behavior. Thanks to Ms. Chrissy and Mrs. Birch for organizing this and the community members who bring their dogs. Our students and staff love our family group time each month. This month, our focus was get to know your family group, and students discussed a PACS vision for their family group, participated in icebreakers, and listened to our staff read aloud. All are welcome here. Our students have enjoyed seeing staff members reading our books each month. We are happy to say that Marshall received 4.5 stars on our state report card and earned 17 out of 20 stars. This is amazing. It takes the staff, students, and families working together to get that rating. I'm so proud and dedicated of the Marshall staff and students for working hard and the parents for getting their students here on time. Way to go, Marshall. That is from Ms. Jones. And that's it.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Otto, Finance Committee Liaison Report.
So I had a chance to meet with Mr. Hubbard and Mr. Falski and reviewed the report that the HEPE group put together. And what the report is just an analysis of our facilities and helps us to identify and create a plan to continue the maintenance on our building. I thought it was interesting. We were talking about the new high school, and Bill pointed out that it's over 10 years old now. So it's really important that we try to incorporate that and keep a maintenance schedule going on all our schools. That's it.
Thank you. Arts and athletics, I've got a few reports here. From Mr. Menays at Marshall, fifth grade students working on rhythm and meter also learned the history of the Star-Spangled Banner and America the Beautiful, as well as other patriotic selections. Students in the fourth grade are beginning to learn to play the recorder. Third grade have learned about rhythm and beat and the instruments of the orchestra. They've begun working on their performance, a musical tribute to our nation's veterans, which will be on November 13th. Students in the second grade were also learning about beat and rhythm, as well as learning about famous composers that lived during the Baroque period, like Johann Sebastian Bach and Antonio Vivaldi. Students in kindergarten and first grade have also been working on beat, tempo, and the different ways to use our voices. Maureen Kelly at Kramer reports that Kramer music is also off to a great start, exploring the elements of music, playing rhythm instruments, singing, and moving. Grades 4 and 5 have been working hard on recorder playing and will soon begin concert preparation. On to the high school, Mr. Marston reports that the marching band has several performances this month, including one at the homecoming parade this evening, as I'm sure many of you were able to attend, and the home football game tomorrow. Next week, they will perform at the home football game on Friday and then go to their first contest of the season on Saturday. Other groups have performances coming up in October. Melanie Mortimer in drama says that they will be producing and performing an original adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. They will be rehearsing, acting, possibly playing instruments, helping build props, scenery, puppets and costumes, paint scenery, hang lights, stage manage, run sound and light boards, and create marketing content. We have a cast of around 20 kids from both THS and TMS, with about 15 tech kids from the high school. The students are planning to produce a fall variety show that is completely student-produced, written, and directed, and hopefully one as well in the spring. We will also produce a show in March, but are still making choices for that production. Christina Clare here with high school art sent along a statement partially taken from a suggested press release format from the Ohio House of Representatives. Begun in 2016, the Ohio Arts Council joined with the Ohio House of Representatives and the Ohio Art Education Association to mount a student exhibition representing all 99 House districts in the state of Ohio. The exhibition recognizes the talent, creativity, and innovation of students who receive high-quality arts education instruction as part of their academic experience in school. It represents art by some of Ohio's finest high school artists. Last spring, artwork from the AP portfolio of Lillian Franks, THS class of 24, was selected for the 2024 through 2026 Ohio House of Representatives Student Art Exhibition. Congratulations, Lillian. The opening reception is next weekend, Saturday, September 28th, and Lillian's artwork will remain on display at the Vern Riff Center through May of 2026. Also, Talawanda High School students in both AP Art and Art Club will be designing and painting rain barrels for the TMS Water for South Sudan project. Rain barrels will be up for auction in October during the fundraiser night on 10/14. Talawanda High School artists are excited to help out their middle school with this important service project. Athletics, girls tennis, 11-5 on the season. They've won 7 of their last 9 games and are favorites to win the conference. Boys and girls soccer, both teams are competing hard and improving. Football, the varsity team has been competitive in every game. We have 76 student athletes on the roster. The JV team is 3-1, and the 8th graders are now 4-0, so the future is bright. Girls golf, the team continues to improve and does not have a single senior. They will be wrapping up their season next week as they head into OHSAA sectional play on Tuesday at Walden Ponds. Boys golf, the team has had another very strong season, also have a lot of young talent. Several impressive freshmen and middle schoolers are also coming up. Varsity finished 6th in OHSAA sectional play yesterday. missing the cut barely to move on to districts as a team by only 4 strokes. Micah Daniels advanced to districts as an individual by winning a tiebreaker on a playoff hole. Volleyball, the team is 12-2 on the season and already has at least a share of the conference championship. Abby Noga also reached 1,000 career assists on September 3rd. Congratulations, Abby. Cross country, our girls team is extremely strong and currently ranked 6th in the state by the Ohio Cross Country Coaches Association poll. They took 1st in the Lakota East Fall Classic and finished 2nd in the Mason Invitational. The boys team is also performing well, placing 5th in both the Lakota East Fall Classic and Mason Invitational. Many good things. Thank you, Mr. Richardson, for keeping me informed, keeping all of us informed on that. Great, thank you. Okay, resolutions and presentations. Lindsey Gregg, we've got our report card presentation.
Good evening. How is everyone? So, it always backfires. This is my 5th year standing up in front of the board to talk about the school board, or I'm sorry, the school report card. And this is my 10th year at Talawanda Schools. I started at the middle school. And I could say that at least in 10 years, I have never seen a report card this good. So I'm really excited to stand here tonight and talk to the community and talk to you about our report card. So this presentation this evening is going to focus on the district report card. I am going to give a little bit of information around each school building and the overall stars that were reported for each of the buildings. But for this presentation in general, I'm going to stick to some data around the district. I did link in how you can access each school as well as every district in the state of Ohio to look at the report card for any school district that you choose, as well as a resource that ODU has created to be able to kind of interpret what those 5 components are. So starting in 22-23, school districts now are rated receiving stars in 5 components. Once upon a time, it was letter grades. So probably 3 years ago, we saw the letter grades of A, B, C, and below. Districts now are given an overall rating using the average of all of those areas. So the total amount of stars that a district may earn is 25. In a building, when you start to kind of dig into the high school or the middle school or any of our elementaries, you're going to see that those stars are not 25, they're an overall of 20, just because the high school doesn't have an early literacy component and the middle school and elementary doesn't have a graduation component. So those 5 components are comprised of achievement, progress, which we like to call value added, gap closing, early literacy, and graduation. So I'm going to speak very quickly about the overall ratings in each of our buildings in our district. Bogan received 3 stars out of 5, Kramer 4, Marshall 4.5, TMS 4 stars, and then THS 4.5. I've also linked in what I had talked about earlier as far as a resource in regards to how to interpret these report cards and how to interpret what those stars look like. So on the right-hand side, on my right-hand side, you can see what those stars mean, ranging from 1 star all the way up to 5. And so each of our buildings have received 3 or more stars. And if you look at what that means, it means that every single building in our district is currently meeting or exceeding state standards. I'm going to talk a little bit about some buildings towards the end of our presentation, and I would be happy to answer questions if you have specific questions about our buildings towards the end of our presentation. But like I said, I'm going to kind of focus on our district right now, and then we'll wrap up with some questions about individual buildings if you have them. So Talawanda School District overall, with our 3 elementary buildings, our middle school and our high school, received 22 out of 25 stars. That is an overall rating of 4.5 stars. So for those of you who look at last year, that is the exact same as what we achieved last year. 22 stars, 4.5 stars. Being the data person that I am, I like to dig a little bit more into what that looks like. And so on the right-hand side, you'll kind of see some percentages. And so those percentages, the performance index is 80.8. Last year, it was 80.1. And so I really just want to kind of touch upon that each of those percentages, even though the stars are the same, we have went up. We've not dipped down in any of those 5 components. And while it might be a small amount that we've went up, the trend is going upwards. So we're very excited about that. You'll see that the ranking that I've listed, that ranking is in regard to Butler County. So there are 10 schools in Butler County. So overall, our star ranking puts us in second, right behind Ross, who earned 23 out of 25 stars. So as I had talked about earlier, there are 5 components that make up the report card. And one of them, the first one, is achievement. And so this component represents whether student performance on tests met established thresholds and how well students performed overall on our tests. And so we received 4.5 stars, which exceeds state standards in academic achievement. As we start to kind of dig into what that Butler County data looks like, which I've linked into this presentation for our community members as well as for our board, you'll start to kind of see where we scored from 3rd grade all the way up to high school. And so when we look at 4.5 stars, we're really doing well as a school in achievement. Is there room to grow? Absolutely. But we are excited to see that all of the curriculum that we have in place and everything that we have going on has proven that achievement is really going well here in the district. Progress is another component, and so we like to call this value added. Every teacher in the district that has a test associated with their name. And so this would be 4th grade teachers all the way up to high school. 3rd grade does have a test, but you have to have 1 year of data in order for progress to be a measure. And so this component is a little difficult to explain, but what happens is if I am a student and I am standing in line for the drinking fountain, I need to hold my place in that line from year to the next year. So if I'm 3rd in the line, I need to maintain that position. And so if you are 3rd and the next year you are 3rd, it means that you have maintained and you have made progress. If you are 3rd and you become 2nd, it means that you have exceeded progress. If you are 3rd and you are now 4th, it means that you have lost a little bit of progress. And so it doesn't matter about the achievement score, whether you're proficient. It means, have you grown at all? If I'm limited on a test, but then now I'm proficient, I've grown. But if I'm limited and I stay limited, we're a little bit stagnant. So I hope that helps understand some of what progress is about. The growth index can include several years of growth, and it helps determine the certainty that the expected growth did happen. Our progress for the district is 4 stars, and that is significant evidence that the district did exceed growth expectations. Gap closing is not just one thing to talk about, it's numerous things to talk about. And honestly, probably my most favorite thing to talk about, because gap closing is all about subgroups in our district. And so when we talk about subgroups, we talk about socioeconomics, we talk about minority groups, we talk about gifted, we talk about English language. So as you can see on this presentation, gap closing is comprised of gifted performance, chronic absenteeism, English language proficiency improvement, graduation, English language arts, math achievement, as well as English language arts and math progress, which I just talked about. All of those components make up those subgroups. And so those subgroups are, first of all students, no matter what the subgroup is, as well as Asian, Pacific Islander, Hispanic, white, American Indian, Alaskan Native, Black, non-Hispanic, multiracial, English learner, economic disadvantage, and students with disabilities. And so when you look at those subgroups, we have all of those subgroups in Talawanda. And some people may be curious as to how many students does it take to make a subgroup? 30. So we have to have 30 students in order to have a subgroup, in order for it to count for gap closing. This is just a snapshot of what ELA and math achievement looks like for gap closing. And each of those bars represents those subgroups. And so the red dot is the goal of where we want to close the gap for those learners in that subgroup. So as you can see in achievement, we have closed the gap in every single subgroup, except for students with disabilities. And I can say, even 10 years ago when I started in this district, that gap was pretty large. And it is comforting to see that we are getting closer and closer to closing that gap, even with our students with disabilities. The next component is early literacy, and that is talking about kindergartners all the way up to 3rd graders. So that component measures reading improvement and proficiency for students in kindergarten, like I said, to 3rd grade. It includes 3 different measures: proficiency in 3rd grade reading. It also includes promotion to 4th grade and improving K-3 literacy. So in this area, we receive 4 stars, which exceeds our state standards. And I'd like to talk a little bit about this component. About 3 years ago, we really started looking into what the state and what the nation in general was putting out in regards to how students learn and how students read and what we should be doing to make sure that they're learning how to read. The science of reading was, being talked about a lot. We didn't really understand if it was going to be a state mandate, but we started kind of researching what that looked like. So a lot of students were taught to read whole language, and then we started reading about how students needed to really be exposed to phonics, explicit instruction in reading. And so we decided as a district that we were going to start doing some different types of curriculum, Orton-Gillingham method, which is that phonics-based instruction, as well as using resources like Braille Magic and Hegarty, and that was in our early literacy grades, K through 2. And so I would attribute all of those things to why now, today, and I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like in regards to percentages in a little bit, why that's been so successful for our district. Graduation is the other component. I'll talk again a little bit about what that those percentages look like, which is really fantastic over the past 5 years. But the four-year graduation rate applies to students in the class of 2023. So we always like to say that the graduation rate is a year in the rear. So we're talking about the students who graduated in 2023, who graduated within 4 years. These are students who entered in 9th grade in the fall of 2019. They graduated in 2023. It's calculated by dividing the number of students who graduate in 4 years or less with regular or honors diplomas by the number of students who form the final adjusted cohort for the graduating class. Again, I'll talk about what that 5-year trend looks like, but in the area of graduation, specifically at THS, we earned 5 stars, which is significantly exceeding those state standards in graduation rates. I would be remiss if I didn't really talk about what it looked like for Butler County comparisons. And so I have linked in the data for every single Butler County school, which is all 10 of our schools in Butler County. Talawanda High School consistently ranks in the top of all Butler County high schools in the end of course exams. So for this, for fiscal year 24, geometry first in Butler County, government second, ELA 2 third, U.S. history top 4, as well as biology, as well as algebra. Talawanda High School, very exciting news, received 18 out of 20 stars, which makes them the #1 high school in Butler County. And we are so excited for the work that Mr. Davey and Mr. Cole and Ms. Hess, as well as the staff and the students have put in at Talawanda High School. They deserve this. Talawanda Middle School, 6th grade math, first in Butler County. So again, I'd like to just reiterate that accessing data, there is a link there for anyone who'd like to take a look at any of that. And again, I'm open for any questions that you have around any of that data. I'd like to talk about some upward trends that we've seen in the last 5 years. So I had talked a little bit about the graduation rate. In 2019, 92.7% was our graduation rate, and that was the 4-year graduation rate. 2024, which is that year in the rear, really that 2023 graduating class, is now 98%. We are second in Butler County, only behind Ross, which is 98.3%. ELA 2, which is our sophomore level EOC test. In 2019, 54.5% of our students were proficient. This past year, 77.3% of our students were proficient. This is my most favorite piece of data to report. Grade 3, due to all of those early literacy resources that I had talked about and implementation of what that looked like in the past 3 years in K2. In 2019, 49.5% of our students were proficient. In the fall, I will add, the fall 3rd grade test is in October. And so that fall 3rd grade test, they're very early 3rd graders, if you will. In 2024, set almost 69.3%, so close to 70, right, are proficient in reading. And so we love to see that upward trend. I wouldn't be anywhere if I didn't talk a little bit about what our downward trends look like and the challenges that we have in front of us. And so 8th grade, we have a big challenge. 8th grade ELA in 2018, we were 53% proficient. In 2024, 44.2. As well as math, 2018, 63%, 2024, 46.7%. we have our eye on this. We're working diligently with the middle school staff to understand where they are and what they need as far as resources. And I'll talk a little bit about our action steps around that towards the end of the presentation. But I will also note that both the state and Butler County averages for both of these areas in ELA and math are around 45%. So we do offer AP courses at our high school, as well as a lot of CCP courses. Our AP Calculus, highest score ever earned, 3.42. AP Government, 100% of our students pass with a score of 3 or better. Highest score ever earned, which is that 3.8. And just for context, for our community and for our board, when we talk about advanced placement courses through our college board, that is not a curriculum that we as Talawanda set. The college board sets that curriculum as well as the syllabus. And so that syllabus is given to our teachers who are trained AP teachers to be able to teach. And so AP Biology, 93%, pass with a score of 3 or better. AP Chemistry, highest score ever earned. AP English Literature and Composition, 92% of our students pass with a score of 3 or better. A score of 3, and the max is 5, allows students to then transfer that score in high school to college credit. And that is as long as they're going to an in-state school. So sometimes that translation of a 3 doesn't always look the same if you're going out of state. And I can say personally, my son goes to Rose-Hulman currently. He is majoring in biomedical engineering, and he's a senior this year. He took many AP courses, and he received a 3 in one of his courses. And unfortunately, when he went to Rose, it did not transfer. However, he did take many CCP classes within our building and the opportunities that Talawanda provides, and was able to transfer some of those. So our counseling office at the high school does a fantastic job of advising students of, here's what we think you should take, where do you think that you're going to be going to school? If it's out of state, here's what we would recommend. So kudos to them. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the implemented action steps that we had last school year and what that looks like going into this school year. So grade level and department level collaboration across all buildings. We implemented some data collaboration days, and that was above and beyond our 3 professional development days. And so what these days are is a lot of our departments in grade level, they look at data in the morning, and then in the afternoon they do a lot of collaboration. This has served very well for our teachers. It has given them a fresh lens and eye to what data looks like in our district. And when I say data, it isn't just about achievement data. It's about behavior data, mental health data, attendance data, graduation data. So a lot of different professional learning committees coming together to talk a little bit about what that looks like. We just updated our ELA course of study, and as Ms. King talked about earlier, we have adopted and now are implementing new curriculum K through 12 for ELA. We did form a literacy committee for the last 2 years to discuss research and understand the science of reading, as I talked about earlier, and that helped inform decisions about what curriculum that we wanted to adopt here at Talawanda. We continue to meet monthly with student assistance programs within the building. This goes back to what I had talked about earlier with mental health and behavior and attendance and those subgroups. We meet with teams of psychologists and counselors, teachers, and administrators. We added new CCP offerings at THS this year to include psychology as well as government through Cincinnati State, The exciting part about those two classes is that our students are able to stay within the building in the walls of THS and take their courses. They don't have to leave, and so it's an opportunity for them to take those courses asynchronously with a teacher in the room that help guide their instruction. Calculus and English were added in previous years. We updated the STEM course at TMS. Exciting, it focuses on historical inventions and using history to recreate modern day inventions. So we're really excited what that looks like for Mr. Dennis and his class. We worked with special education staff to implement research-based interventions. This will be evident through that gap closing that I talked about earlier that keeps getting closer and closer to that proficient range. So what's next? We want to continue to examine the needs for our CCP and AP offerings, as I talked about. Just like we formed a district-level literacy committee, we'd like to form a district-level math committee in order to explore fluency, teaching practices, and of course those state readiness assessments. We want to have 100% of our teachers trained in the science of reading by June 2025. And I will add that that is not a Talawanda mandate, that is a state of Ohio mandate. Professional development will occur in ELA K through 12 through 24-25. In fact, today I was at Bogan Elementary all day long, in and out of classrooms with the University of Delaware, which is part of our Bookworms program, and we're able to provide direct feedback to our teachers that way. And we want to make sure that we're not just adopting a curriculum and saying, here you go, please do it. We want to adopt a curriculum and provide that ongoing feedback for them in order to be successful. And science and art have begun a curriculum adoption in the course of study for next year. The last thing I really want to talk about is, the last 5 years have been has been the most difficult years in education. This is my 25th year in education, and I can easily say that the last 5 years, no matter where you are in the world, has been a difficult part of education. Our students, our teachers, our families, our community, they deserve a lot of accolades for the results of this report card, and I could not be more proud to be standing here representing the teachers and staff members in this district. So I just want to say congratulations to them. And I am open for questions.
I do have a question. I've had a couple of people reach out. If you could explain a little bit more for the public about data days and
Sure.
exactly what happens on those days.
So as I had talked about, it is really hard to put teachers in a room and go, here's some numbers, look at data for the whole day. That is not what we do. And so in my department, I have some really amazing people that get together data, whether it's for achievement, attendance, progress, right? Mental health. And so we're called by all the administrators in the buildings to get together reports of what does our attendance look like the past month? How many students have been seen by a school-based counselor in the last month? How many students have been in the counselor's office this past month, and why have they been there? How can we, as a third grade, move kids from one point to another? Even though 70% of them are proficient, we want to grow them more. And so that data is given to them. And for about a couple hours, I would say 2 hours in the morning, grade levels get together. So if you're in elementary school, we typically will pick a school, Kramer, Marshall, or Bogan, and all of our third grade teachers will get together in a room and they'll talk through what that data looks like. They'll make some action steps, some understandings of where they are, what they need to work on, And then in the afternoon, we do something called collaboration. And so a lot of times that is, if you are a Kramer teacher, you might go back to your building and you might work with your grade level team on the next steps of what that data looks like.
Understanding correctly that, we used to have early dismissal days on Wednesdays, and the theory was that early dismissal time then was for teachers to be able to do this kind of work, but that by eliminating that and going to data days, that work can be much more effective, efficient, meaningful.
So if you think about those early release Wednesdays, there are pros and cons to that. And so it would be very difficult for all of the things that I just mentioned to happen in an hour after school. And that is, it's every Wednesday for an hour, ensure that work is being done. But for 4 days during the school district to have those data collaboration days and have those full days of being able to meet and being able to complete that work is a little bit more efficient.
So it's just 4 days, though.
It's 4 days above those 3 PD days.
I just
Correct.
want to add to that. We had the hour after school on Wednesdays, but really it wasn't an hour. When you have car riders being picked up, buses coming in, it actually got whittled down to 40, 45 minutes. We could never get, as Director Gregg was saying, all of the third grade across the district together. It just couldn't happen. And we knew we needed to have those rich discussions and to analyze data to find out what's working, what's not working, and how we can learn off of each other.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, again, the public, I don't think really has had that explained, that there's a lot of value in these days that just could not be accomplished by releasing school an hour early on Wednesday.
And the minutes come out almost the same. So if you added up that time every Wednesday, it comes out to almost exactly to 4 days.
I just had a question about the AP calculus.
Sure.
Because I know last year there was the switch to the Cincinnati State with the CCP. So do we still have AP Calc as well? I wasn't sure if that was an option still.
So we don't offer AP Calculus as a standalone class, Ms. King, but we do offer any kid who takes that CCP class.
Oh, they can take the test.
They can take
Okay,
that
yeah,
assessment.
that makes sense.
And
I was wondering
honestly,
about
yeah, any student who doesn't even take that Cincinnati State CCP class, any student can take that AP test.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Really important too, because if they pass it, that's great with a 3 or higher, right? But if they don't, say they get a 1 or 2, they're still getting the college credit.
Correct.
I want to say thank you for your presentation and everyone's hard work. Obviously, Talawanda's doing fine, and I appreciate all the hard work of the students and staff. I had a few questions. I'm kind of a competitive person. I looked at your list of where we're ranked, and the lowest one on that first slide was gifted. We're ranked 5th in the county. Have we always been in the middle?
I wish that Kathy Chenoweth, my gifted coordinator, was
Yes.
here to talk through more of this with you. But we have consistently not been able to serve certain areas of gifted. And so when you look at what type of gifted education we can provide, there's things like visual arts. There are things like creative arts. We do not provide those type of gifted services at Talawanda. Creative thinking has been assessed, but we don't serve those types of things at Talawanda. And so those really are strikes against us when it comes to the report card, unfortunately.
And that,
Yeah, and I think a while back I probably voted to cut 2 gifted teachers. I apologize. And I think we brought 1 back.
we did.
I guess I would like the staff and leadership team to have discussions rather, in looking at the economics of that, of bringing the other back would better serve that group of students who deserve that service. Maybe it's a conversation you can have going forward as we look at ways to improve what we're doing for our students.
Mr. Mead, if you are asking me if I would like to have another gifted teacher at elementary, I would absolutely say yes. And I think that every 3rd through 5th grade teacher that is watching this evening or even in the audience would say that they would love to have that service back as well.
Yeah, I guess I don't mind if the leadership team has a discussion about that, including the financial implications. The other thing I looked at was, like at the middle school, our math scores went down when you delve into some of the details. And I spent 32 of my 40 years in education with middle schoolers. They are a special crowd. And I think I probably voted to cut the SAP coordinator at TMS. We have not brought that back, have we?
No, sir, you have not.
So is there a possibility that because we cut that intervention that we sort of are shooting ourselves in the foot? And maybe that's another discussion we can have about where we ought to put resources to make sure our kids are successful. I guess I would like you to have that discussion too with your leadership team, to delve in with the math teachers at the middle school, whether that is part of the issues they faced in helping students who are struggling, because teaching math is just an interesting experience with middle schoolers.
I would 100% agree with you. In the 12 years that I was in the classroom, I taught 7th and 8th grade math, so I couldn't agree with you more. What I will say about that 8th grade math score that I talked about with that downward trend, so when we look at that data specifically, we are teasing out multiple things. And so we give an 8th grade assessment in math. We also give an algebra assessment in 8th grade. We also give a geometry assessment in 8th grade. And so the really great thing is that we have 8th graders who are taking 8th grade regular math. We have 8th graders who are taking Algebra 1 for credit, and we have 8th graders who are 2 years advanced in taking geometry for high school credit in 8th grade. So when we look at that 8th grade math data specifically, we have teased out the Algebra 1 students and the geometry students, and we are only looking then at our 8th graders who are taking 8th grade math. And so we are working diligently on trying to figure out how to raise those scores for those students.
So I appreciate you saying that, because we've also cut in the budget, I'm going to call them the instructional coaches that assisted the teaching and learning, which actually went into the buildings, helped staff, helped plan, that now has fallen solely to you, Lindsay. So I mean, I understand why we made those decisions, but it does have an impact, and we knew it was going on student achievement and well-being.
And we know we can't have everything,
Right.
but maybe discussions about some things that we could look into that will bring us the most return for students. I wouldn't mind that. And I just had a question about the science of reading. Every staff member from K to 12 has to be trained in the science of reading?
And administrator.
And the administrators too, custodians, kitchen workers?
No,
Okay.
no.
Um,
Certified.
Who's paying for that?
The state of Ohio.
Oh, good.
So if we have any teacher, kindergarten, preschool, I should say, preschool all the way up to seniors in high school who teach seniors in high school, as well as our administrators, as well as some support staff that have teaching license, like our English language tutors, we would recommend that they also have the science of reading, since they are teaching our ELL students how to read the English language. There are different pathways that the state of Ohio has recommended, and they go from A to F. And so some of them are 22 hours, some of them are 7 hours. And so depending on the number of hours, the state has agreed to pay $1,200 stipends, and if it's an 8-hour or below course, they're gonna pay you $400 for a stipend. I would say that right now, on September, 19th, I would say 75% of our staff have taken the initiative to be trained on that. And I would probably say the reason why that is because 2 years ago we decided to do this literacy committee where we started digging into all of the science of reading types of things and getting that buy-in. I stood in front of the entire district on opening day as I stood up here and just kind of addressed them. And I said, there are not a lot of things that I can get behind from ODE or ODU. And that's terrible to say as a curriculum person, right? But I do get behind this training as the science of reading because it is so helpful for our pre-K to 2 students to learn how to read successfully by 3rd grade. So it's been refreshing. The thing that I would say that is unfortunate is that it is 22 hours for a lot of our kindergarten through 5th grade teachers, a lot of our high school, middle school teachers that teach English language arts. 22 hours of training that is not allowed to be done during the regular instructional school day. And so, again, that's why they're being paid that stipend. But, you know, we ask them to do a lot of things, and this is another thing that they have to do on top of, Mr. Mead, the gifted types of PD that they have to do. So we're asking our teachers and staff members to do a lot. And so I think that's why I'm so extremely proud to stand here tonight and say how amazing our report card is, because in spite of everything that they have had to do and continue to have to do, look at the results that they've given. Look at where they are with Students First. I cannot tell you enough how proud I am of them.
Thank you. Well, I do want to thank you and the entire staff, EAs, teachers, administrators, leadership team, Dr. Thoreau. I think we are doing really well, and I know there's areas to improve, but I also know that that's being worked on. I appreciate all your work. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate also the transparency, the acknowledgement that as well as we are doing, there's always more that we can do, and we never stop recognizing where those lapses are, recognizing and strategizing what we can do to address those. So thank you for doing that work. Thank you. All right, Jake Richardson, our turf presentation.
Good evening. Yeah, I'm just going to give a review of our turf and its current condition as we've maximized its lifespan, and it's done very well for us in the community and the school district. A little background on the turf. It's 13 years old. Installation was 2011. It opened in December of 2011. Installer was the Mott's Group. It gets used 12 months of the year. I mean, even in December, January, February, if we get those breaks in weather, there's teams using it for off-season workouts, baseball, softball, get out there, whatever they can use it for, it'll be used. Maintenance history, there's been every spring, the Mott's Group comes out and does maintenance, inspection, cleaning, all that of the field. And that's all monitored and recorded by them and through us as well. Current condition of the field, the big one right now is turf fiber, which is the green and colored fibers that stick up, and then you have also the infill, which is the rubber and sand that sit in those fibers. The original height of those fibers was just over 2 inches. Now it's not really necessarily measurable across the field in some areas, especially basically numbers to numbers or hash to hash through that middle part of the field where 90% of your action happens for most of your sports. The fibers are shorter, loose fibers are accumulating, fiber wear is apparent throughout the field as they will stick to your hands, shoes, clothes, etc. If you go to my garage, you will find rubber, sand, and those pieces of turf all over from where I have to dump my shoes out every night when I get home from walking across that field when I'm site managing. And And this spring, we kind of turned a corner where in the past we were getting one bag of those when the MOTS group would come in and run the machine over, do the sweeping of the field and kind of redistribute the infill. This year they actually pulled off 4 bags of loose fiber, which was, the field's just kind of turned that corner where it's given us all that it has. And we're also getting to the point where we're gonna, if we tried to keep it, we're gonna have to start cutting out big sections and repairing those patches, repairing those areas with patches. Some pictures of the current conditions. So the top 2 that are outlined in red are actually still on the field, but they're in the far southeast corner where we don't go to. So you can kind of see where there's not really use that's out of bounds in that far northeast corner. You can see what that should look like, the fibers there, as well as what the color of the field should be, the infills down in it. But when you get into where the middle of the field and where all the play takes place, 90% of your play takes place, you'll see the bottom left, that is the tee in the center of the field. You'll see that rubber sitting on top. You'll see the fibers in the middle bottom picture as well. There's rubber sitting on top. There's just rubber there. The fibers are worn down to the infill. The seam on the bottom right, that's starting to pull apart again, and that was a seam that was repaired to make it safe. So we'll keep filling that in with rubber to keep it safe for our student athletes, but we'll continue to have those. There's multiple other seams that are popping up, and we'll get that bad in the near future within, months to the spring. Because just in 6 months, this seam is continuing to grow, and we keep an eye on it to make sure that it's safe. And then the top right, you'll see the bags of infill fibers that were collected this past spring by the MOTS group. And the past several years, we've only had 1 bag of that in the spring, and now we've got up to where they pulled 4 of them off of it. GMAX testing is another, it's always a concern, whether it's playgrounds, whether it's athletic fields, that type of stuff. It's just that the lower the GMAX measurement is better shock absorption. Higher GMAX, the firmer that ground is. Obviously with athletics, just for falls for the body as well as the head and concussion stuff, to keep that under control and keep it safe. That GMAX testing is a measurement that's always taken into consideration and looked at closely. Synthetic Turf Council recommends a GMAX score of 165 or lower. GMAX score of 200 or higher is definitely considered unsafe and shouldn't probably be played on. In May, we had an average GMAX of 150. We had 2 locations that had a GMAX measurement of 165, so we kind of hit that top end of that safe measurement. That's our highest recorded GMAX setting the last 5 years. I think the last 3 we set right at the average was like 144 to 146 in the last 3 years prior to this year. And so the last 5 years it's been between 140 and 150. So we kind of took a big jump there in 1 year. So the overall condition, obviously I kind of hit on everything with the fiber wear being a big one. Exposes that infill rubber, decreases footing and traction, increases that GMAX due to infill displacement as it gets moved around a lot more now, being exposed and those fibers not keeping it locked in. Replacement considerations or recommendations is because of the fiber wear, the exposed seams, the unstable footing are the major factors right now. GMAX scores, we're still in that safe range, but that's at this time. That will continue to jump. How much it will jump, I don't know, because we've kind of hit that downhill slope on infill, giving us any more life out of it, as well as the fibers. So that GMAX setting measurement will probably continue to go up. The MOTS group, a little bit of background on them. It's kind of recommendation as we get into this with the life of this turf being 13 years. Turf fields are warranty for 8 years. You're expected to get about 10 out of them. You can stretch them to 12. For us to get 13 good years, even the MOTS groups, like this field has done extremely well for you, for us, the community. So they're happy with it. We're obviously extremely happy with it and what it's given us. The MOTS group were the original installers back in 2011. They have an in-depth knowledge of the existing base and drainage system that's under that field. They've done the yearly maintenance on it, and cleaning and all of that, and they have all that documented, so they have all of that data in their possession. Their availability, I mean, they're ready to undertake the project as soon as track season ends this spring. They actually could sneak us in the winter, but that would have to be something that would move extremely fast to make that happen after the fall sports season was over. And the reputation, they're one of the top synthetic turf companies. They have a proven track record from community parks to high schools, colleges, professional stadiums. They're also kind of local. They're Midwest based. They're based out of Cincinnati. That's where the customer service is second to none with that, with the Mott's Group. And they're OCEPC affiliated, which Shauna can give you more information on, better details on that part of it. But they're already vetted through the competitive bid process through that organization. Yeah.
Okay, so, oh, I didn't see the thank you. Okay, so we belong to a co-op, the EPC, that they go through the bidding process for not only food, materials, playgrounds on a yearly basis. And so that allows us, by being a member, that allows us to void out the bidding process, the competitive bidding process on our own, unless we truly wanted to see what else was out there. But they have gone through the process. They have two companies right now who do this, but Mott's is one of the leading turf companies on the market right now.
So what's the projected cost to replace the field?
$550,000,
And that's with Mott's Group?
correct.
Is there would there be additional expenses as they pull it apart, that there might be base repair that needs to be done?
There's always that in there. I mean, I'm waiting on the kind of exact figures from them on and then there's some options that we'll have to play with that exact number as well, right? We can have options to reuse some of the infill, but that also depends on when they get here. That can adjust a little bit based on how much infill is actually reusable.
Mm-hmm.
There's a savings cost in that type of stuff. What fibers we go with, we do split film, do we do monofilament, do we do a blend, what those are. If we choose to continue to use the same infill, there's some details there that can maneuver that price a little bit. And then yes, as they pull it out, they'll check the drainage, they'll check that base, they'll make sure that's all good. We haven't had any drainage issues with our field. Obviously, it's lasted way past what's one of the oldest fields that they have out. So they don't see any issues popping up that would be outside, that would cause us any type of significant or increase in price outside of those numbers.
But with construction, you always have the unknowns, and you always
sure.
have to plan a certain percentage for those as a contingency.
Sure. So what is the other group? What is their price on it?
We have not explored that group as of yet.
The need is obvious. I've been out there, and your pictures, definitely tell a story. But would it be possible to potentially, if a decision was made to install a new field, do it after graduation? Since the chairs, the stage, I would hate to put that on a brand new field, because I would assume there would be some damage to the field from
There shouldn't be.
the pressure.
There shouldn't be. But as of right now, to move and get it done before graduation, like this winter, would have to be something that gets put in play like tonight. And
So
Which
you weren't
I would
assuming
love
that
that, so we
anyway,
can go,
because
but-
when I saw spring, I was like, oh,
But-
well, that would be before graduation, but I
no,
guess
after track season. in the
after
spring.
track
Yeah,
season,
yeah.
after graduation.
So as soon as
Okay.
track season would be done, they would be able to get in there and
Okay.
get going on it.
Okay.
Can I ask, what's the conversation around more and more universities and professional sports teams are pulling up their turf and going back to natural grass? I was just reading University of Nebraska is redoing theirs. There's a push in the NFL to get more teams to do that. Is there a cost comparison in that, or what are the challenges?
This was back before, prices have increased a lot, but so have they for natural turf as well. Originally, like the SDC, the Turf Council, I think it was over a 20-year span, including a replacement at the 10-year mark. You were going to be a third of the cost in maintenance, installation, all that for turf than you were taking care of natural grass. That could adjust some, but even if it was an extreme measurement of turf prices and labor costs going up, I'm very confident to say that it would be at least 2/3 of that price of what it would take to take care of natural grass or natural turf.
Well, beyond the price, though, I think a lot of the drive behind replacing turf is safety, that there's more injuries,
That's such a loaded question with
I know.
so many variables. We're not talking about, I wish we had a whole team of 240-pound to 300-pound guys that ran 4.240s and 4.440s that can stop on a dime. We don't have that. That's a different year. Those athletes, not even guys, but they're moving at incredible speeds and stopping at incredible rates, asking their joints to do something that we don't have. I can't think of an athlete that we have to.
So we're seeing those kind of injuries with higher performance levels.
Yes, and even, I did a search not too long ago just out of curiosity when that stuff comes up, but I don't want to use it as any type because I don't remember it. But I pulled up knee injuries in college athletes. I think 4 of the top 5 schools were schools down south that had grass fields. So, that's just something I pulled up in 30 seconds and looked up and saw that, and then looked up what fields and what surfaces they had. There's a lot of variables there and things that I'm not gonna be an expert on. And
Thank you. All right, thank you for the information.
thank you.
So, yeah, one more thing. Do you have a plan to bring back a proposal to us?
Yes.
Okay, when, next month?
Conversation, can we, the other company by next month, or is it going to be more like? While he's thinking about that, I think that the goal was to be able to have something in place and something decided by the December board meeting, to bring a proposal to approve at the December board meeting. So what we're doing now is just starting those conversations, because we know that it takes a couple of months. We know that there's a lot of questions that are going to be asked, things that we might need to take a look at, such as this other company, and we need time to be able to do that. So this is just that preliminary conversation, even though we have, brought it up in the past on occasion. This is that preliminary discussion.
And would this be the PI fund?
Correct.
Okay, so this is not impacting the general fund, it's
No,
impacting the
this
PI
has
fund.
been planned and budgeted for in each of the yearly cycles of the Permanent Improvement Fund.
Okay.
And thankfully, we have just been able to push it back a few more years than expected.
I
Thank
just
you.
want to ask, I know we had a conversation. If they want to come in the springs and say it's Mott's, what's the latest that you think we need so that we can sign? Because we have to order everything, they have to put it on their schedule, we've got to be able to get them there. Is December too late?
I kind of have them on standby right now, just because to get on the schedule and be there. I would recommend, if we look at Field Turf, which is a national company, customer service won't be as good for us. They also don't have a background knowledge of our field, our base. They didn't install that. Even if, it's going to be similar in price. They're both vetted through the same co-ops and those bidding processes. So to change companies, I just think it's smarter in the long run, especially when we use that company and got 13 years out of a field. And just in the past decade, they've made advancements on that, on the type of fibers they use and things like that that may get us, hopefully get another 13, maybe another year or two more than that in the future.
Is there any supply chain issues with this product?
Not right now.
Okay, good.
They're kind of ready to go, and they said, yeah, they can fit us in.
All right.
But, I mean, my recommendation would be go with Mott's, keep that consistent. I think we could try to get them in, either it's October, to make a decision by, if we can make that decision by November, that would be a good timeline. Worst comes to worst, if they can't come October, we can try to get them here in November. If you would like to see a presentation and more in-depth, ask them questions about the products and give you more detailed answers specifically to the turf materials and all of that in the process.
So,
I
yeah,
do think it's important to have Mott's and/or the other company come and give a presentation so that they can answer the questions directly. But I do think it'd be important to have Mott's come and
so can you
represent themselves.
Can you work for October's board meeting to have Mott's come and do a presentation? I know we've talked, and I think December is too late. Hopefully we can do November. If we have to push it back to December, I get that, but
Yeah, I'll call them tomorrow.
thank you.
So let me ask you this, if it is brought forward in November, and if it is approved, you get on their schedule, could it be something that is done over the winter, if it's a mild winter, and have it done before track season?
If you wanted to make a motion and vote on it tonight, we can
Tonight.
have that. Maybe I could call tomorrow.
And that's why I was asking about the December, and that's the conversation that we've had, that December could be too late. And I appreciate you have them on standby, but they're gonna take jobs. We really need to move November at the latest, in my opinion.
I understand getting the prices, and I understand that going with the low price isn't always the best option. And I think Mr. Richardson makes some good points about Mott's having the field, but I think it would be good just to see what the price variance is.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Malone, one policy tonight.
Good evening. Should be a quick night for me tonight. I have one policy for a first reading. It's policy 5330.02. It is procurement and use of epinephrine, auto-injectors, in emergency situations. So this is the first reading of a new policy, and basically this policy states that each school will store 2 EpiPens in the nurse's office for in case of emergency situations, and each school will have at least 2 people trained in the appropriate use of the EpiPen. And that is really it for tonight. Questions?
Good job.
Everybody's happy to see me go when I do these, I know.
The one thing that I am going to bring up, our district nurse, Tanya, has been able to secure these for free. So that is going to be a donation, which is really nice. And the idea of having that in case somebody needs it, it will be on hand. Only trained personnel will be able to give it. So it's a great idea.
Is the shelf life pretty long on EpiPens?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
I think they're a year. My kid has one. They're a year, so every year. But they are expensive, but we will work to get them replaced. And just like having an AED in every
yeah,
building, I think is a good method to hopefully never, ever have to use.
Right,
but it's here for you.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you all for being patient and seeing our presentations on important matters. So we are now opening up to visitors and public participation. Just some reminders: when you step up to the mic, please state your name and your general area of residence. You don't have to give us your specific address, but are you in the city or the townships? Please address your remarks to the board. Any items you want to talk about having to do with district business, And remember that we allot 3 minutes per person and 30 minutes total for the session. I will have a timer, and I'll give you a gentle reminder if you're getting close to that 3 minutes. So first, I've got on the list Don Diker.
Hello, good evening. My name is Don Diker. I have lived in Oxford and the Talawanda School District for 60 years. I am a Miami University professor emeritus. I taught courses in composition and in English and American literature for 43 years. My book on Ernest Hemingway was published this spring. Most important, my wife Vicki and I have had 4 children who attended school here. Garden through middle school and high school. Pamela, Stephen, Paul, and Matthew. What Pam and Steve and Paul and Matt have in common is this. Their exemplary Talawanda education prepared them for college and for life. Because of their Talawanda education, they were all accepted at many, many colleges and were offered scholarships as many. Pamela won several scholarships to Emory University in Atlanta and graduated as an English major in 4 years. Stephen earned financial aid from Tulane University in New Orleans and graduated as a sociology major in 4 years. Paul won a scholarship to Vanderbilt University in Nashville and graduated a political science major in 4 years. Matt followed his brother to Vanderbilt with a scholarship and graduated a history major in 4 years. After college, all 4 of our children attended law school, earned a JD, a doctorate degree, and then embarked on a successful and continuing legal career. It was the Talawanda school system that prepared our children for success. When I asked my kids what to say about their Talawanda education, here's what Steve said, quote, "You can say that your eldest son was a severely underachieving student with wayward and delinquent tendencies, but the Talawanda High School teachers and administrators never gave up on him. Talawanda High School teachers and administrators never gave up on him." And if Vicki were here with me this evening, she would join me in thanking the teachers, the administrators, and the staff of the Talawanda School District for their expertise, their professionalism, and their caring. So thank you, thank you, thank you, Talawanda.
Next, we have Ivan Carver.
For Hanover Township. There's a lot of important decisions in front of this board.
Can you move a little closer to the microphone? Yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me? So one of the most important decisions that you have to make is selecting a new colleague from a pool of applicants. So how do you select that colleague? You look at how active they've been. Do they come to the board meetings? Do they participate? Or do you look at an applicant like myself who's been fighting for our students, our teachers, our classified staff since COVID? Or do you look at experience? Do you look at someone with similar backgrounds to the majority of this board, a background in education? Or do you go for diversity in thought, someone like myself who has started many businesses, served on other boards, been in corporate America for the past 20 years in many different areas, audit, inventory, cost accounting, procurement, and IT. And I have a very strong data background, and I think that's something that this board needs. Or do you look at passion? Again, looking at other applicants that don't show up and it's not done much for the community, or do you look at someone like myself that's provided data to this board for areas I thought that you needed to make a decision. I've used my own resources. I've used my own know-how to conduct surveys to provide you guys with that information. It's one of the many areas that I do. So. But I think probably the most important aspect I think you should look for as a board is someone that can help unite this community. You guys, there's a lot of strife, there's a lot of ambiguity, a lot of distrust going on in the community. Look at the people that are supporting me. They're from all walks of life, inside of Oxford, outside of Oxford, far left, far right, because they recognize in me someone that's going to look out for the children in our community. I think Talawanda is probably the best school district in Ohio. That's the reason why I live here. And that goes to a lot of the credit to our teachers, our certified staff, and even our administrators. We have some great administrators as well. So I just want to say I'd love to work with each and every one of you on this board, and I look forward to your decision. And the decision's in your hands. You can choose someone that is not active, doesn't play a role, somebody just looking for the title, someone looking just to play the game, or you can choose an applicant like me, someone that's looking to change the game. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Scotty King?
We'll move a little closer. I think that stands a little further away. So I'd like to start off, Scotty King, Darttown, Ohio. I would like to start off with giving some context to the email I read last board meeting. I read the statement that Terry Hasselbrock composed about me during Don's December 1st, 2023 school tour. I was hoping to read Stephanie Arney's statement tonight, but due to being involved in my second investigation in 3 months, I'm going to pivot to a different topic until the investigation is completed. I submitted a public records request with the last name King, and I uncovered emails between Board President Rebecca Howard, the board member that quit, and his husband, Edward Throw, and our board attorney discussing potential removal of board meetings from live broadcasting on YouTube. I would like to take a minute and read a few statements between the group. On July 14, 2024, the former board member that quit emailed Rebecca Howard and Edward Throw, stating Sean Brooks' willingness to defame on behalf of Scotty and Don King would be a liability to the district, and broadcasting live stream on YouTube could put the district in extreme liability. On 7/15/2024, around 11:20 a.m., the husband of the board member that quit sent an email to the entire board requesting the same thing under a new subject label, parent concern. 18 minutes after that, the board member that quit responded with, when live streaming was enacted in 2020, was it a vote or simply a change in format? If simply a change in format, I join his husband in his plea in begging the board to reconsider and return to the transcripts signed as a Talawanda board member. 35 minutes later, Edward Throw responded with explaining that it would have to go back to transcripts. It would not be in word by word for the public comments, but as a summary. This goes on for a few additional emails where the board member that quit was begging as the board member and also as a parent to change from live broadcasting to written transcripts. On July 15, 2024 at 8:49 p.m., Rebecca asked the board member that quit and his husband if she could send the email to the board attorney so they could apprise of the scope of the slander. I've struggled to find another example where the board has allowed board members and their spouses to communicate so openly and freely with all board members, senior staff, and attorneys. Seems like collaboration to me. I also amazed that the majority of the board and the senior leadership team is willing to suppress and remove broadcasting, live broadcasting, for the community to cater to one family. What do they have on you guys? If anybody would like these emails, please contact me. Next board meeting, I plan to discuss the federal lawsuit about the next 10 board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this Eliza Sullivan?
Eliza Sullivan, Oxford, Ohio. I'm a Talawanda graduate, class of 24, and I'm now going to Miami. As a Talawanda student, I often went to board meetings because I think that the work that is done here is very important. And as a student at Talawanda, I always felt that the board and the district were working in my best interest. I've always been proud of the board's ability to continue the important work that they do through times of political turmoil, through the masking, through the levy, etc. I am dismayed to see an attack from some members of the community on our board, who I believe is genuinely working to create the best district they can. These attacks have cost thousands of dollars in Freedom of Information Act requests, legal fees, and investigations. This money should be spent on our students. I am deeply troubled by what has happened to David Bothast and his family. He did great work, and I'm sad to see him go. I hope we can find a candidate to finish out his term that reflects the same student-first approach that he embodied. I want to say thank you to the board for all that you do. I hope we can continue to work in the best interest of our students rather than sacrificing them in a political crusade. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelvin Corbin.
Kelvin Corbin, Oxford, Ohio. I want to thank David Bothast for his time and service on the board. Being a board member involves making incredibly difficult decisions involving funding, curriculum, but most importantly, children. Some of these decisions are no-win, and yet you're all the face of these consequences. I know it's a mostly thankless job, but I particularly appreciated the rare combination of candidness and compassion, which was refreshing from someone in public office. He did not deserve to be pushed into having to make this choice. I truly hope and pray that David and his family find peace and rest in this upcoming season. And to the other citizens out there, if you have appreciated the work that he's done, please let him know. On to my second topic. My wife and I met as students at Miami and Oxford more than 20 years ago. We left after graduating, but eventually returned to Oxford. One of the biggest reasons for choosing this place was what we had learned about the school district. At the time, this district was supported by the community in meeting the needs of all of its students. Recently, I've noticed a troubling trend in the vein of the issues that Mr. Annable spoke on last month. Now, I'm not going to rehash everything that he said, but we as a district need to get back to some form of stability. I'm speaking to the board, the administration, and to family members. The current climate as it relates to board meetings and board-related matters with some of the public is not as conducive to the academic and emotional health of Talawanda students and their families. Many parents will tell you that children can mirror some of our best and worst habits, at least the ones of their parents I'm referring to. The Kramer Code encourages us to take care of ourselves, to take care of others, and to take care of Kramer. Now, my kids attend Kramer, so I know a bit more about that school than the other, but I'm going to apply this to the rest of the district as well. We as adults need to model this kind of behavior because our children are watching us. They're watching these meetings, and they're watching what happens in the community. They're paying attention to how we treat each other and learning from the example that we set. And to be blunt, these children are relying on the adults to get our acts together. Thank you.
Matt Likens.
Good evening, Matt Likens, Oxford resident, Talawanda Educator Association co-president. We didn't intend to make a statement tonight, but here we are. TEA believes that public record requests, when used responsibly, are an excellent tool to maintain accountability. But we also recognize that there's a sizable financial burden. And in fact, TEA made a focused records request a couple of weeks ago. And when it was supplied to us, we asked out of curiosity how much it cost the district. And it was eye-opening to realize that for 3.5 hours of billable or administrative labor and materials cost, it cost the district $223.80. And so TEA officers spoke, and we would like to reimburse that to the district now. So I'd like to give this to the board.
It's money, Shauna, you might want to grab it.
Matt, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, the TEA as well. Ann Wengler.
I'm Ann Wengler. I live in Hanover Township. I'm here tonight to recognize one of your teachers, Talawanda Middle School teacher, Miss Beth Fryer. She was nominated and recognized as the Oxford NAACP 2024 Diversity Educator because of her excellent teaching credentials, her genuine care and concern for students, promoting relationships with students first. Her classroom was identified as one as being most welcoming. And then her role as a world cultures teacher, her goal is for students to see the world from the lens of other cultures. She encourages students to think critically about the world. So she was awarded $200, and the educational materials have just been purchased, and they'll be given to the Talawanda Middle School, but be available throughout the district as part of their library system. So I wanted to recognize her excellence in the area of diversity. And then I want to put my just personal hat on for a minute and just make a question. I'm very concerned about things that have been going on regarding the school board the past few months, and especially the past few weeks with the resignation of one of your members. And my question is, when there's talk about violence, people threatening to bring weapons and being proud of harassing board members, who is looking out for your safety? I mean, I recognize you work so hard and it's such a difficult job, but who and what is the process of making sure that you are safe and that everyone in this room is safe when there are people who are threatening with violence? So I hope there's an answer to that, but I know you can't give it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you all for participating. Moving on to our treasurer report. We're blocking quite a bit here. We're going to actually jump a block here. We're blocking items A through G, approval of minutes, approval of gifts, approval of appropriation modifications, approval of then and now over 3,000, approval of financial report, approval of the amended official certificate of estimated resources, approval of fiscal year 24 permanent appropriation resolution. We're going to jump over H and come back to that. So we're also going to include in this block items I, approval of BCESC MOU for services through Union Day Therapeutic School, and J, approval of BCESC contracted service agreement for speech language services, and item K, approval of mutual facilities license agreement between TCSD and the City of Oxford for the 2024-2025 school year. So do I have a motion to approve items 5A through G and I through K?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
I just want you to know, Sean, I'm reading through the financial report and I'm writing down questions I have about why some numbers are the way they are. And I get to the bottom and there's your notes, and I had every one of my answers. So maybe I should start with the notes first.
I've noticed that too.
Because your reports really, I mean, they're excellent, so I appreciate that. And then the other comment, I think we're approving 5I, and that, I don't think everyone understands. This is for 4 students, the Union Day Therapeutic School,
Yes,
for $178,000.
yes.
Yeah, so I spent 10 years at Catholic schools, and we always bragged about how we can educate kids for a lower per pupil cost. But some things drive up per pupil cost.
Say
You
no.
know? Okay. I'm glad we provide that for these students that need it. I really am. Thank you.
And I had some questions about that Shauna was able to answer about, I wasn't sure if that was like a payment we're paying up front, if a student were to leave or whatever, realizing that no, this is we're just approving it, but it's not paid.
Correct.
All at one time. Like,
Correct.
because I was afraid if a student left or had to change schools, that then, do we get some kind of credit back for that, or,
Do we
you know,
have
a
to
reimbursement?
claw our way to our money back? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we are billed quarterly, and if a student does leave, then it's basically a percent to total of the days that they were actually in attendance to that district.
And I think we need to understand, this is a very specialized service, too.
Correct.
These are helping students who have some pretty significant needs.
Correct.
That cannot be managed within the typical classroom.
That is true.
It's driven by the IEP, and this is those students' least restrictive environment to ensure they get educated and are safe. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Ms. Tefelsky, please call the vote.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Recommended that this is item 5H. It is recommended that the board approve a fund transfer of $12,000 from the general fund to the high school fund. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion or questions?
So I was just going to ask, so Shauna, you had sent me that fund currently has a little over 72,000 in it, and that the majority of the money, the reason to do the transfer would be for parking lot repair costs for the high school.
Okay, let's back up. I think that we're a little bit, we're talking about two different things here.
Okay.
So when we were charging for a parking pass, half of the money went to the high school principal fund so that they could do certain items for the students within the high school, because they really don't have a PTG to do that fundraising for them. The other half went into a parking lot fund to do those repairs, the striping, if the posts get damaged, signage, that sort of thing. Half of it went into that.
Okay.
So what I showed you or shared with you was just the parking lot fund.
Okay, so the parking lot fund is the one then that has the 72K?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So what would the 12K be used for? I was just confused because I was like, that's a lot of money in there. I don't, you know, if money's needed, then that's fine, but I was kind of confused by
Yeah, so
the use for it.
historically, Mr. Davy is not here, but historically it would have been for the straight A breakfast. It would have been for the students that give the orientations and guided tours, some items for them to represent their schools. It would be the celebrations in the spring.
Summa cum laude.
Thank you. It would be all of those.
Okay.
In the summer, or I'm sorry, in the springtime.
So really, the majority of this money would go to that, not to the parking lot? Because like I said, it just seemed like a lot of money
None of
for the
it's
high
going
school.
to the parking lot.
It's all going to that.
It would all go to the principal fund.
Okay, gotcha.
100%.
Sorry about that. That was my
No,
confusion.
no, that's okay.
I'm good.
Sorry, any other questions? You're very sparkly tonight, by the way.
Oh, yeah, sorry, this is an old football gear. For
Any other-
the parade.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Tefelsky, please call the vote.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, item 5L. It is recommended that the board approve legal counsel such as Bricker Graydon and/or Ennis Britton to fulfill public records requests. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or discussion?
I was just curious, is this, so I know could you go over the normal process? Because I'm trying to figure out where this fits in the normal public records request process. Or is it replacing one of the steps?
No, so normally someone could submit an email to me or submit the form to me. with the request, I would disseminate it to whatever departments who controls that information or that record. I could be in control of that record, and it's easy. Here you go. But when you pull in other departments, sometimes it takes a little bit of time. And then there is a redacting process to make sure that nothing should be going out that shouldn't. And lately there has been 2 people minimum to do that redacting, sometimes 3. Lately there have been requests that have made the administrators extremely nervous because it is student information, it is Title IX documents, threat assessment documents that have been done on our students, and so those have been sent to, once they have been collected, those have been sent to the attorney's office for a paralegal to redact. And sometimes with the Title IX documents, they specifically said, now an administrator needs to read over these to still ensure that what has been redacted or what has not been redacted, no one can identify the student. Because in the community, people have talked or could have talked and might have known what happened at XYZ, which means that if those documents got out into the public, then that student could be identified and, who knows. And so I think that the thought process in this is that there will be a new email address, public records at talawanda.org. The paralegal would have control over that, as well as 1 or 2 people within Talawanda, just in case there are leaves, vacation, sometimes, we don't want too long of a time span to get with these public records and fulfilling them. And then they would disseminate the information as far as if it's financial, it will come to me. I will take care of it. If it is, can't even think right now. If it's any other type of record, thank you. If if it's emails, it would go to the IT department to start extraction. So they would just be that initial point person, and if necessary, they would be the ones who would be redacting the documents just to ensure that every student is safe.
I just want to
This
share.
is not let me just go. I think it's also important to recognize this is not a fixed sum. This is going to vary depending on the amount of records that are coming in. And it's also part of this is because our staff are being seriously burdened by the number of records requests that are taking time away from the jobs that staff members need to be doing, that they're contracted to do.
Absolutely.
So this helps to make the public records request process more streamlined. It helps make it easier for you, not easier, it makes it possible for you to do your job, for the staff members also to do their contracted jobs.
Yes, this is not necessarily a permanent solution either. This needs
Right, we're
to
not
be
hiring a position here.
No.
We are just arranging
No.
with one of our law firms.
Correct.
To have this process.
Correct.
They'll bill us.
They'll bill us.
They'll bill us.
They won't hesitate.
Yeah, I think with some of the new record requests, 6 years of Title IX sexual harassment investigations by somebody who doesn't even have a kid in the district, threat assessments, those are very sensitive documents that even when redacted in a small community, people might determine they can figure out who it is. So that puts us in a legal position to have to spend all this extra money to make sure we protect our students' privacy. And this also will make it possible for you to maybe do your job and your hours without, how many hours a week you spending on record requests recently? You don't want to say?
A lot.
A lot? Okay. Because I think last year, we had 28, and starting this year, the fiscal year started July 1st, and we have 28 already.
As
10
of
weeks?
this morning, we had 35 requests.
Right.
As of July 1st.
Right. And I look at many of the requests, in my opinion, is they're basically harassment and frivolous, and that's my opinion. The people that might think they're very important. It might be very important to someone to say, I want a record request for any time, any email from anybody in the last year mentions my name. Because I might be concerned what y'all are talking about behind my back. And those record requests, I looked up one of them, $410 it cost the district to let this person know what people are saying about them. Maybe they should follow the teachers union's motto here today and bring us a check. I appreciate what you did. It really, maybe we ought to do that. They can help pay some of the legal bills. I'm fired up about these record requests. I think a lot of it's harassment. It's meant to eat up your time, and there's kind of motives behind it that make me worry about the motives behind who's asking for these things and what their end game is. Now, the fact is they have a right to do it. We're a government body, and the public has a right to see what we're doing and to make sure we're transparent. My mom always said, just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Some of this is not the right thing to do to our staff and to our students and to the taxpayers who are now going to take money and sink into more legal cost instead of children. I'm sorry we've come to this position, but we have come to this position. I know the 28 that I knew of before you said there's 35, 11 of them are from the same individual. 3 on one day, 1 on the next. It's, I have hobbies. That's not it. I'm just sorry we're in this spot. And I'm sorry, Ms. Trafalski, that you have been put on the spot so often because of this. I wish it didn't happen.
Any other questions or discussion?
Yes. Ms. Stafowski, will these attorneys be looking at these requests and determining if they're legitimate requests?
Every request is legitimate, whether they are allowed to be given out. Yes, they would be based on code. Could they deny it immediately? Yes, based on code. But every request is legitimate.
No, I understand that, but I wanted to make sure I could request a lot of things, but if we don't have a report for that, they'll determine whether or not that request can be fulfilled.
Correct.
All right.
And that may take conversations with myself. That may be a conversation with whatever department, whatever is being requested. There's still going to be conversations with, whatever department needs to be brought in. But yes, they would be doing the bulk of it.
Mr. Otto, when you're talking about that, I want to be clear on that too. When we're talking about student stuff, we talked about the student safety threat assessments that have been done. Title IX are just a couple examples of that. The survey that we did for transportation that had parent names and student names on that. That's all stuff, while it's permissible to ask, there are areas that need to be redacted. And when you start talking about students, I am involved in those type of records requests. It also takes somebody to print out the records too, so that we can actually redact and look at them. But by providing it to the lawyer with these sensitive documents, we will have a good start for the redaction. It is not asking, like the military almost every year asks for the directory, which we give out. That's something that's typical, usually done, very easy to do. But the documents that are being asked are very deep, student-specific, that our goal and our job is to protect every student so that information doesn't get out. The lawyers have the best knowledge for that. They will look at it. They will determine from Ohio Revised Code, the code that Sean is talking about, can it go out? Can it go out? What parts? What's being redacted? And then they often, as Shauna said, come back to us, please read one more time. You're a small town, small community, and there are some words that may trigger or identify a child. I am very troubled by the sensitive nature of the records that are being asked to be handed over. We will protect our students. But I want to make that clear. It is not simple directory information that we can go in. They're looking for specific student information.
Very good. My next question is, I don't know if it's a question or a request, that we start sending out these requests when they're made to the board members, so we get a sense of what's being requested and how often these requests are being submitted.
Information, I'll provide it.
That'd be great.
Yeah, just forward the email.
I don't know that we need to forward every email public records request, but if we could get summaries of this is what has come in this week. As part of your weekly report, just we've had this number of records requests. These are kind of the general categories that they're looking for. I don't want to get an email on everyone. I don't want to see every email of the public records request.
Actually, I do.
But he does. So
I do too.
Send them to him.
I figure it's easier for you to hit forward than write up a report. And I was looking at these, I looked at one that's 36 pages long, it's $62 in labor cost, and then there's one that's 9,597 pages that you didn't do the labor cost for. I can only imagine. I'm still not sure we're allowed to charge a nickel a copy, and if you had to print out 9,597 pieces of paper, even though they didn't receive those papers, that paper costs the taxpayers money that should have been going to our students, and we don't charge them a nickel because we print them out, redact them, scan them back in, and then email them. I still think we ought to charge a nickel. And for good news,
state law, we can't.
Good news is the OSBA is going to start advocating to the General Assembly that school districts can charge labor cost for public record request. So some of these people that are doing 11 a month might want to get a second job. So that'll be good news if they can get the assembly to go along with that.
Anything else? All right, Ms. Tefelsky, please call the vote.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
No.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes. I do have one update, and that is effective October 24th of this year, the competitive bidding threshold for Ohio Public Schools is increasing from $50,000 to $75,000. That is through December of '24, and then it will increase annually 3% each year after that, and that's Ohio Revised Code 9.17. And what does that mean for us in that when we have construction projects that exceed that amount, before it was $50,000, anytime it was estimated to be $50,001, we would have to go through the competitive bidding process. That doesn't mean even with this 50 to 75,000, we're still not going to do that, but it is allowing school districts a little bit of extra flexibility. Anything over 10,000, we automatically get 3 quotes if we are able to from companies, but this just allows a little bit of flexibility depending upon where the school district is in Ohio of how many different vendors that are available to them. So this is just some information for you guys that might not mean a lot until we have a construction project again. That's all I have.
Excellent, thank you. All right, moving to the superintendent's report. Again, we're doing an interrupted block. We're going to block items A1, acceptance of resignation of certificated licensed personnel. Item A2 is informational purposes only, so it does not have to be voted on in the block. Item 6B1, acceptance of resignation. 6B2, acceptance of resignations. 6B3, acceptance of termination. 6B4, limited employment non-teaching contract. 6B5, amended limited employment non-teaching employee contract. 6B6, approval of substitute classified staff employees. 6B7, rescinding of classified personnel contract. In item 6C, we're only blocking 6C1, rescission of supplemental contracts, and 6C2. We will come back to 6C3. And we're also including in this block 6D, approval of overnight field trip proposal for Washington, D.C. field trip, and 6E, approval of extension of strategic plan. Do I have a motion to approve items 6A1, 6B 1 through 7, 6C 1 and 2, 6D, and 6E?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion, questions?
Just about your information item where you said that the ESL tutors via BSCS are placed within Talawanda. We hire them through them and they're just here. Okay, that's all that's no change in anything.
No, that's
why I was
Butler
surprised.
County, we have several staff that are.
Okay, I thought that we changed things, but we did not. Okay, all right.
Any other questions or discussion? Please call the vote.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 6C3, approval of a supplemental contract. We're simply considering this separately because this does include Mr. Otto's wife as one of the names here. So do I have a motion? Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve item 6C3?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Ms. Tefelsky, please call the vote.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Abstain.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And then informational items from the superintendent.
I don't have any at this time. We had a great opening. You heard about the report card. It's time to celebrate. We still have work to do, but I'm very proud of what our staff has done. Because if you look at our elementary scores all the way up to high school, our kids that stay with us, they're crossing the line, they're graduating, and it is remarkable. And it takes everybody. It takes the custodian, it takes the classified, it takes the certified, it takes the administrators to make it. I'm very lucky to have such an amazing staff and administrators. Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item 7. We're going to start with 7A. It is recommended that the board approve the superintendent's contract addendum as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion, questions? Ms. Tefelsky, please call the vote.
I was just going to say,
sorry.
I was going to see, Ed, if you could explain to the district students and employees why you deserve each of these line items since you're on a current contract for the next 4 years. And go through so the public understands what is being voted on.
I don't know that that's Ed's responsibility to do that. Again, we've had our conversation in executive session around these addenda. I think that is our conversation, and I think we have laid that out. The improvements to the district, we've seen the graduation rate that has increased considerably since he's been here. Yeah, and we've talked a lot about this at several meetings about the comparative salaries throughout Butler County. Our salaries here have not been competitive, and it's time to do so.
Yeah, I do not think Dr. Throw should have to speak to this. I think this is a board decision to give him this contract and all the little pieces that are in the contract. And I'm very proud to say this is what I think he deserves, and I want to keep him around. I see the progress we are making, and I'm not going to, I'm sitting up here, I'm supposed to take care of students, and my main job is to make sure we have a system where our students are safe and can achieve. And that system has shown improvement, and as a person in management, then I say to the people doing the work, you get rewarded because we are making progress. And that goes from the aides to the superintendent and treasurer. You were part of every conversation where we talked about this, but but if the public needs a defense of this, then I would provide it. Dr. Throw was one of the lowest paid superintendent in the county, yet we're the #1 high school. Doesn't make sense. Sorry, doesn't make sense. You pay what the marketplace, you need to pay in a marketplace to attract good people. Talawanda is a great system because we attract good people. None of them are in education for the money, but we have to keep them here, and money is part of that. The other reason they stay is because they work with one another, they have respect for one another. It's a great place to work. I was here 30 years. It is an awesome place to work. And hopefully we can keep them around because they're supported by a Board of Education that knows what they're doing for our students. And I know the progress we've made since Dr. Throw has come on here. I wish maybe you could communicate better sometimes, but you know what? I'm going to judge you on the performance that we expect out of a school district. And so, yes, he gets an annuity, and yes, we pay for health insurance, and yes, he gets a retirement system. Like any worker in any business gets many things as well as their salary.
And there's nothing in these line items that is out of step with contracts for other superintendents throughout the state, frankly.
But the district signed a 5-year contract, and we're only through 1 year of the 5-year contract.
And as we've explained at many meetings, when that contract was voted on a year ago, first of all, both Dr. Throw and Ms. Tefelsky agreed to a pay freeze because that was when the levy had not passed. We were making additional cuts, and they both agreed to a base pay freeze for that contract, with the understanding that, as with our administrator contracts, if our financial situation improved, that we would revisit the base pay and some of the line items on the addenda. So that all we're doing is living up to our word, which was, and it's written into the contract that can be renegotiated.
Well, not everyone was on the board at that time.
Correct. But
yeah.
the board that worked out his contract promised them that salary and financial items would be revisited if the financial situation of the district changed. And so the board is keeping that promise. I'm not sure how to do management in a system except by keeping promises you make to the people that work for you. If you want a system where people are going to have good morale and produce, you keep promises to them. You don't break them.
2 points I'd like to make. First is, this is not the first time this is done. Previous boards have done this. The second thing I'd like to make sure everybody knows is, when we did the comparison, we didn't do it to all the schools in Butler County. We did this with schools that are comparable in size. So I think those 2 points, I think, need to be made aware to the public. So, and I understand your question, Don, but that this is not a one-off or the first time this has been done. We made an adjustment for Mr. Davis' contract when I was on I think my first session on the board, if my memory serves me correct.
Well, I'm just running numbers, looking at total compensation, because I've never gotten what a total compensation would be, and it looks like somewhere between $250,000 and $260,000 a year from calculations that I made for a total compensation package.
And that's, again, people need to understand, we're talking about, that's not base salary, that's not take-home pay. That's a number of factors that have to do with, again, negotiated items, and it's not out of line with other contracts throughout Butler County. It's very in line.
And with a number that high, my guess is you're including, when he retires, his severance package.
That could be part of it.
Are you?
He's not going to be taking home
He's not taking a severance
$250,000.
package every year. He's not taking a severance package this year. Many workers in many industries get a severance package when they retire. It's standard. They deserve it for the
That wasn't including the
loyalty they've had.
severance, but
So I think we need to
Don't
make
include it in the
excuse me,
260,000.
Excuse me.
Okay.
I think what Don's saying is this is the total cost for the position, salaries, benefits for this. Is that correct?
yes.
So I think, again, if you were to look at other school districts, we're offering the same package, and probably the cost would be very similar. So this isn't anything that's unusual. What's unusual is that we've been paying Dr. Thoreau so, under market. And I think as a group, we decided that we wanted to address the market issues for our staff. I think we went back and added $2 an hour for our classified staff. We looked at our mid-management and wanted to make them competitive, so we offered to do a pay increase for those. And this is what they were just extending it and doing it for Dr. Thoreau.
This
and
is a
also for
lot
Mr.
more than
Fauske.
$2 an hour.
It is, that's true.
This is going from, excuse me, 129,564 to 148,430, excuse me, I'm losing my voice.
That's true.
So that is way more than
Well, it's true.
$2 an hour would only be a little over $4,000.
But I think the key was we were talking about a market comparison and trying to make our staff comparable.
Anything else? Felsky, please call the vote.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
No.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, item 7B, it is recommended that the board approve the treasurer's contract addendum as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Conversation, question, discussion. All right, Ms. Felsky, please call the vote.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
No.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, the last couple of items here, we want to give an update on the board vacancy appointment, just a little clarification with everything that's been happening over the last couple of weeks. First of all, just clarifying, another email went out to follow up on the application guidelines. Those guidelines were distributed throughout our network to all families, to the media, and the idea of sending that out to everyone was to provide transparency of the process so everybody could see exactly what it was that we are asking applicants to respond to, and to make sure that access was as broad as possible to anybody who wanted to access that. Anybody who's not interested in applying, you don't need to apply. Reminder that anybody who is interested in applying, we need you to complete the application process by answering the questions outlined in the guidelines, and submit this as a letter, an attachment, or an email, and these go to our HR director, Mike Malone. They can be emailed to him at malonem@talawanda.org. They can also be printed out and dropped off at the administrative board offices at 131 West Chestnut. The deadline for those submissions is next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, September 24th, and the time for that, cutoff time for that is 5 p.m. Yes, that's a correction. It went out at 2 different times, 5 p.m. on one notice, 4 on the other. It is 5 p.m., so we are sticking with that. That time. Just a reminder, the individual selected will complete the remainder of the term that was formerly held by Mr. Bothus. That term is good until the January organizational meeting when we swear in. This would be the individual would remain on a member of the board until the January 2026 organizational meeting. If the member who appointed to this position wants to continue serving, or if there are other citizens who want to run in the next election, that has to go through, you have to contact Butler County Board of Elections for more information on that. The completed applications that have been collected by Mr. Malone will be distributed to the remaining board members after that 5 p.m. deadline on September 24th. We have scheduled a special session at 5 p.m. here at the high school on September 30th, 2024, to review the applications. A special session is one in which we come in, we open the session, and then we immediately go into executive session where we process the applications, review, have our discussion, and then we can come back into open session, and being a special session instead of a work session, if we have been able to finalize a choice or a few choices, we would then come back into special session and vote on those, on that choice. If we do not make a decision at that meeting, we'll provide additional information and next steps. We are legally obligated to fill this position within 30 days of the resignation, which was September 9th. Again, our goal in this process is to ensure Talawanda families know about the opening and that all citizens have an opportunity to apply for the vacancy. We are very excited to see so much interest. We have, as I checked before I came tonight, we have 20 individuals who have expressed interest. I believe we've had 3 or 4 who have returned the applications. If you did request an application, please be sure and get that back by Tuesday, September 24th at 5 p.m. I do want to mention the public is certainly welcome to communicate their thoughts on this process with all of the board members. However, we are not requesting letters of support or endorsement for individual applicants. This process is an appointment, not an election, and we will make a decision by considering all applications equally and basing the appointment on an applicant's qualifications and their responses to the questions we have provided. Just so you know what it is, that's why we came up with those very specific questions, so it's a level playing field there. All right, so items from the board members. I do want to say, I want to read a statement here that has been echoed, I think, by some other people here this evening and over the last 2 weeks. Speaking for myself, just for myself, as a member of the greater Talawanda community for over 4 decades, and as an individual board member, again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, as an entity or on behalf of my colleagues, it absolutely breaks my heart to have witnessed the ugliness that has reared its head in our community and the toll that it's taken on our district and on the people who are tasked with moving us forward. Personal attacks against administrators, elected officials, and their families, people who are just trying to do their job. This behavior goes beyond simple disagreement or difference of opinion, but has become for some the preferred method of discourse that is no longer grounded in civility, but in hatred, vitriol, conspiracy theory, disinformation, rumor, unsupported accusations, and verbal and psychological violence. This is not the community in which I have lived and worked my entire life. I have relatives, friends, and acquaintances in every corner of this town and every surrounding township, and I know this ugliness is not representative of our larger community. We can, we have, and we will disagree about decisions and courses of action, and we will have legitimate reasons to be critical of others' decisions and actions. That is to be expected in a community as diverse as ours. But for those disagreements to devolve into poisonous rhetoric that has as its goal to demean, attack, threaten, or accuse without substance is not how responsible and respectful communities move forward. We do that through compassion, communication, and grace. As individuals, we need to look deep into our hearts and our souls and decide what kind of community we want to be. Personally, I want a community that can disagree and respect, that can be constructively critical and cooperative, that can embrace both our differences and our shared goals, and recognize that this is where strength as a community comes from. We need to take a stand and make it clear that hatred is not the cornerstone of our community. Anybody else have anything they would like to?
I was just gonna ask Ed, if you could prepare a couple of slides for the next board meeting, about the superintendent committees. I had sent a couple of emails, but I still don't have an understanding of what each of the, superintendent committees do and why they were put together. And then if we could also get a list of the board policies where, decisions are made by the board or board designee. And if you have any idea when a policy was changed to add board designee.
I'm not sure about that second. So you're looking for board policies that are on board docs that you have access to that says anything about board or board
Not,
designee.
well, no,
That's what I'm trying
board, it says board or board designee. Like, one of the policies, I wasn't aware, and I honestly don't have that policy number with me right now, but it says decisions can be made by the board / board designee. So, I was gonna see what policies,
Apply to that.
yes.
I will look them up. As for the committees, I know I provided you with the information, but any committee that's not a board committee is considered a superintendent committee. Grade level meetings, department chairs are all superintendent levels. I listed as many as that I could thought with that, but I'll bring back the same information on a slide.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to read something. I wrote it down because I have this habit of getting too passionate and carried away with myself. Because I'm deeply, deeply saddened by David's resignation, Mr. Bothus. Like most of us, he became a board member to serve our community. He was an excellent board member. He always advocated for our students and staff of Talawanda and advocated for public education, and we're going to miss him. You know, when you become an elected official, you expect criticism because of the decisions you're going to have to make. But you do not ever expect personal attacks on your family, especially young children. I don't know what kind of people do that. What kind of people go after a 14-year-old? It's just beyond me. I know the article in the Oxford Press, and I would suggest you read the printed version because it's more in-depth than the online version.
Is that the press or the server?
Oxford Free Press, sorry, I'm old. The Oxford Free Press. Might shed some light on it because if you read it online or you heard about it in the community, you didn't hear some of these quotes from a local podcaster. They include things like the process is to get rid of people like Bothus. You can engage in personal attacks. That's 100% fine. That's divide and conquer. I'm all in for it. This is the division that's being caused in this community. The podcaster adds that King needs to keep going after these people and make Bothus unemployable. Even says, I have no problem destroying David Bothus' son in the middle of a board meeting. He's 14 years old. 14 years old. And he claims that this is because David engaged in an ethics violation that should cost him his position. Well, the ethical violation he's talking about, which is not an ethical violation, is an email Mr. Bothus wrote concerning an issue that his 14-year-old was involved in at the middle school, and somehow someone got a hold of that letter and it was read out loud at a public board meeting. Why would anybody read a letter about a 14-year-old at a public meeting? Things used to be different. A 14-year-old whose father wrote a letter because he's concerned about his son. Now, why did they go after Mr. Bothus? And maybe it lies in some of the other comments on the podcast. Allegedly, the podcaster talks about the need for white values. He suggests Mr. Bothus commit suicide or resign and open a gay bar. If he didn't resign, they were going to destroy him. This is what Mr. Bothus put up with. This is what he had to deal with. This is why he resigned to protect his son. And I would ask if this represents the values of the Talawanda community, any part of the Talawanda community. And if it doesn't, the community needs to stand up against this hatred and this bullying. And I would ask people to stop using school board meetings to act out personal vendettas. The school board meeting should be about the school district's business of educating our children. I say we get back to focusing on our students and staff. We should be celebrating the growth and achievement that we heard about tonight and working to further that. You know, this past week I went to all 5 school buildings, spent an hour to 2 hours in each one of them. They are incredible places, full of incredible people. Our students and our staff are awesome, and they're working hard. And this manufactured circus is not helping. Our students and our staff deserve better. So I'm asking people to stop. Thank you.
Any other items from board members?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Bothus for his service. I know he put a lot of time in for us, and he'll be missed.
Yes, he will. All right, future board events. Again, we have a special session coming up on September 30th. Again, just to clarify, there's no public participation in that session. That will just be for us to go into executive session, review the applications, and then come back in and either vote on a candidate or talk about next steps. And then the next meeting after that, October 17th. Homecoming game tomorrow night. Go Brave. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Got it. Discussion, questions? Mr. Felsky, please call the vote.
Mr. Otter?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.